I have the belief that we've got to learn to love ourselves, and that's not in a like in an arrogant way or anything like that. It's just that's more just in my opinion. Again, it's just about accepting the great things that we bring to this life, but then also acknowledging what we aren't as well. And so loving ourselves, flaws and all, and I guess in doing so allows us to be more authentic to who we are and know that despite difficult times, which I guess builds this resilience in us, is that, as you mentioned, even though, if there was the unfortunate outcome of a breakup or job loss or something of that degree, that you know that you can still get past this, you know that even though it is a difficult time, you can get through that. And because you're really anchored in on who it is that you are. You know the strengths that you have, and that you know you can get through this.
Robin Hood and Little John are walking through the forest, laughing back and forth at what the other one has to say. Welcome back to the Ruckless Podcast. Right now, we've got Troy Taylor all the way from New Zealand. And Tyrel and I are both super pumped to have Troy on today. It was funny, Troy. We saw a clip that you'd post on Instagram. I sent it to Tyrel. I said, we got to have this guy on. This is sick. And Tyrel's like, dude, I just liked that same post or a post from him. And dude, it just really hit us because you were out on a river. And for those that aren't yet following you, and that I will promise you 100% of the people that we have any influence with, you should see your numbers kick up by at least 30 or 40 people. We're gonna really blow you up. But man, it was just so impactful. And it was so fun to, be looking at that and then show my wife, hey, like you've got to watch this guy talk to these guys where, you're walking up to somebody on the river. And I think what you said roughly was, has fly fishing ever helped you get through a hard time?
Mm.
And and then just to get to hear that dialogue between young men and old men and just men in general on the river and get to have that conversation, because I know that for Tyrell and I, whether it be the river or the woods or just the outdoors in general, has really been just a huge blessing in our lives around just that healing space that is being outside and getting that time, whether it's to ourselves or with friends. But man, introduce yourself to us and tell us who you are. But I can tell you, we are so excited to have you on and have this conversation just about your insights, what you've seen, what you learned, and what got you to start asking those questions.
Hey, initially, no, kia ora. Thank you for having me. This is my first ever podcast, so it's a real honor to be on yours.
We are honored.
I'm from Aotearoa, New Zealand, Southern Hemisphere. So I live in a town called Taupo. It's in the middle of the North Island here in New Zealand, and I currently work in mental health. So I have been working in mental health for almost 8 years now, and I guess what initiated the Fish and Chat series that I started was definitely my own work that I do, and I really enjoy working with men and helping them, redirect their life and live a life of, reach their potential. And in doing so, I know how much our mental health has on achieving that outcome. So I thought, in addition to doing that in my day-to-day work, I thought I'd try and do that in a different space, in a creative space. Challenge myself. It certainly makes me uncomfortable to go out and talk to people, or just random people that I don't know. I certainly get anxious beforehand doing that. But the more I do it, the less the less anxious I get, and I actually start to look forward to it. And to be honest, a lot of the people that I do encounter predominantly say no, and that's perfectly fine. My outlook on this and is certainly I will not pressure anyone to say anything that they don't want to. I wouldn't certainly pressure them into a conversation. The majority of people, I'd say only 5% of people say no, and then I leave. Predominantly, those that do say no we'll still have a chat just off camera. And it's really nice, not only, well, it's really nice for the both of us, really, to be able to have these conversations. And most people appreciate being asked some of the stuff that I ask, and just providing essentially a safe space for them to talk without judgment. Like, that's the massive, a really big thing, for anyone, but especially men. And so to know that, and I guess all of these traits that I carry with me to converse on the river, a lot of them I've learned in my years of working in mental health, knowing how important it is to, yeah, create a safe space and respect that person and the story that they have, as well as just reciprocate and just be authentic, just be me. Uh, I don't go out with any other, like, with any agenda or trying to get, all right, this is going to go viral or anything like that, trying to chase virality. That would be against, or yeah, it just wouldn't feel right for me. It wouldn't be authentic. So uh, whatever happens, happens. People have asked me if I ever had chats with someone and not posted it. No, I would never do that. Like, that's just, I feel like disrespectful to the person that I have a chat with. And again, that would be my judgment on them if I didn't upload that. So that being said, there are certainly parts that I might edit out that might look bad on people, because I know as my page is starting to grow, there are going to be more people looking at it. I mean, which the great
Right.
thing with social media, there's all this judgment. It's easy to just have an opinion. So
Yep.
I don't want to put them in a bad light. I don't mind if people come and attack me or whatnot, but I don't. They've said yes to having a chat with me. I don't want them to have to hear, oh, these people going, just keyboard warriors going at them. So essentially, all of that is the main aim of why I started it, is to really just normalize having these chats, normalize people being able to see chats, conversations about the tough stuff that we have in life, especially men, as I'm sure you guys know, like any man that's listening to this could probably resonate that it is difficult at times to talk about this stuff. I've Even with the gentleman that I spoke with, the American that was here in New Zealand, I asked him, uh, what is that similar to in the States, this masculinity? And he said, oh, very much so. And I guess it's worldwide, right? It's just, it's everyone is, there's the stigma and so forth. So I believe that in my, in my life, if I see something and I see it over and over and over again, it just starts to, again, normalize it. And I feel a little more confident to be able to talk about this or raise this. And so that's the aim, to just keep putting out content that people can see from all different walks of life, so that um, that maybe they might be able to have a conversation with themselves initially, just be open to thinking a little bit differently about, or change their own internal narrative, and then possibly reach out to someone, be it a friend, family member, or possibly someone in the professional space. So yeah, that's definitely what drove me, and this, and to keep doing this, and continues to drive me. There's certainly been times, and I'm sure you guys are aware, doing a podcast, that there's a lot of work behind the scenes that goes on, and it can be easy to just, this is just becoming overwhelming while juggling the rest of life. But for some reason, I don't get that. I just want to, this really strong, I want to quit. It's just, yeah, it's hard, but I'm still going to
Right.
keep going.
Yeah.
Right.
So yeah.
Yeah, I think we deal with that a lot. And the kind of our biggest thing right now is like consistency, right? Like we said
Mm,
before, there's probably somewhere in the 30 range of episodes. And um, yeah, it's like if we just be consistent and then get it out, because it is hard. There's times when you're just like, what's it worth, right? Like why?
yeah.
And kind of that consistency piece.
Yeah, and I think guys like you, Troy, make it really easy, because I think that as I sit here and we're getting into this, I go, man, I know for sure what we're going to talk about today is going to give some guys it's I think it's mostly men that listen to us, and we've had mostly men on. But it's gonna give guys something to think about or something to, maybe redirect kind of that, that kind of that dialogue in their own head around,
Mm,
where they're at and maybe how they feel about their lives because you're right that, we had, years ago, the whole, like, toxic masculinity thing kinda came through the US. I don't know
yep.
what it was, how that hit there for you guys. It had a lot to do with multiple different political things that were going on at the same time. Is why it really, I think, really hit. But it's neither here nor there because, before that we were, in the US, I think, 8 out of 10 suicides roughly are male
Mm,
between the ages of say 27 and I'm off a little, I know, but let's call it 27 and 55. And I don't know exactly, I'm my opinion as to why after I've read up on that is that you see so many men have so much of their value tied up in, their relationship with their spouse, their career, you know, and then maybe if they're a father, their father, that fathering part of their lives. But so often what happens is they lose their job and they come home and they've lost that, say, provider energy
mm,
that their wife is attracted to or whatever it is. And, so they come home, they say, "I lost my job," and she goes, "Well, I wasn't really that happy with you anyway. You've kinda sucked the last 10 or 15 years. This is my chance to leave." And I think for those men, then they go, "Well, everything I thought I was about has now disappeared. I don't like
mm,
myself either, and so I'm just gonna eat a bullet," you know? And,
yeah.
and I know it's not as simple as I'm making it, but, from the outside looking in, that's what I see, and I think from, my heart in this is that men, can find themselves going, I'm about a lot more than just my job and my marriage. I love being married and it's one of my favorite things that I get to do. But I really try and pride myself on going, whether she's here or not, I'm gonna be who I am. And I think
Mm,
that's what she wants from me, right? Is it's a lot more fun to love me if I'm
yeah.
a whole person than if I am a person that she's just there filling a hole in me, right?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I agree with that. And I actually had a chat with a gentleman on the river, and he was talking about a relationship breakup. He was an older gentleman, and as he spoke about his divorce and the process of going through that, he spoke about finding a way to love himself, which was really great, in my opinion, to hear him say that, because I have the belief that yeah, we've got to learn to love ourselves, and that's not in a like in an arrogant way or anything like that. It's just that's more just in my opinion. Again, it's just about accepting the great things that we bring to this life, but then also acknowledging what we aren't as well. And so loving ourselves, flaws and all, and I guess in doing so allows us to be more authentic to who we are and know that despite difficult times, which I guess builds this resilience in us, is that, as you mentioned, even though, yeah, if there was the unfortunate outcome of a breakup or job loss or something of that degree, that you know that you can still get past this, you know that even though it is a difficult time, you can get through that. And because you're really anchored in on who it is that you are. You know the strengths that you have, and that you know you can get through this. And
What do you guys have? Where do they go to find those strengths that they have though, Troy? Where because so often I think they're told that their strengths are what they do as a career or their strengths are, so they've been given those that people say, "Hey, I'm going to name you, this position in a company," or, you're this to me. But so often I think we build that kind of that who we are, and then everything below that very often is just something that we've been told, right? So somebody
yeah,
tells you, "Oh, you're this and you're this," and so few men have taken the time to go, "Well, what do I want that to be?"
yeah. I
Right?
mean, that's a really good point. And I guess I when I think about that, I would probably I think about, well, why is that in the first place? We think about these gender roles, and how far back does that go? We're always meant to be men as the providers and so forth. And as I guess through generations, we're starting to break that down as to see more women, let's say CEOs. It's still, I'd imagine, in most corporate roles, there's still a big ratio of favoring men than women, but we're starting to see that shift. So I'd say that that identity of men is still really encapsulated in that gender specific sort of role that we have. And so I guess as for my own journey, when I started to love myself and the people that I work with, uh, sometimes it is through adversity that you have to look quite deeply inward,
Always,
because it
right? I
forces
mean,
you to.
almost always. Yeah.
Yeah. And when you are on your ass, it's while you're looking, you're at the bottom there, you can only look up really, ideally anyway. And through that, you start to really get a little quite introspective and challenge some of this stuff. I know it's difficult for everyone because there's also a lot of um, already in beliefs that make us up and who we are from childhood and so forth, and just our experiences in life. But I know that if we start to challenge the beliefs around gender and so forth, then we start to challenge this narrative that men can't talk. Well, we actually can talk about the emotional stuff because it's once we start to get deeper into who it is that we may possibly be, then we open up to the possibility to change that and challenge that, oh, I'm meant to be a provider or I'm meant to be, this and that. Yeah, so I would say yeah, I guess the original sort of question is, yeah, well, let's look at, yeah, the deeper stuff, like why is that, and I'll be looking
Right.
at gender and
Well,
challenging all that to begin with.
and even something around that, um, I think something I'm always trying to work on, and I challenge myself around is I would like to hold a very full, let's see, I'm so as full of I'm a hyper masculine man as it is, and that's
Yeah,
okay. But how do I
yeah,
do that? But also talk about my feelings. Like I don't think I have to be less masculine. In fact, I think I can experience my masculinity even more
mm,
by being willing to share my fears and, the things that I dream about and things that I'm sad about, right? And I think
mm,
men look at that and they go, "Well, I've got to become more feminine in order to have feelings." And it's like that's not true.
yeah,
The feminine doesn't own fear. The feminine doesn't own sadness. Like we can be I believe now and just so we're clear within this, like if you push back against me, like that's great. I'm just sharing kind of where I'm at, but going like I do believe that like I can hold that masculinity, which
mm,
I think also for me in my marriage creates a really, really fun tension between my wife who is hyper feminine as well.
mm,
And we enjoy that relationship, but also it works well because I'm also very, very kind of sensitive in a way, but in a masculine way, right?
mm.
Um,
Yeah, yeah, I'd agree. And it reminded me of some work that I've done with men. I used to run a few years back. I ran a men's group with a colleague, and one of the questions that we'd ask the men in the group was, "What does it mean to be a man?" And after a few cohorts in, we started to relook or rephrase that question. And I remember one of the cohorts, I just remember asking it, and then on the spot, I was like, "Well, actually, let's rephrase it from what does it mean to be a man to what does it mean to be you?" And look at the uniqueness that you bring because yeah, there's certainly yet, I guess, look at traits or characteristics of being a man, but that doesn't fit every single person. Like some people, like I remember one gentleman saying like, "Oh, what does it mean to be a man? Oh, it means to be strong." Whereas this other man here, he was like, "I don't really identify it. It was just a sort of smaller, petite man." I was like, I don't really align with that. I don't see myself as strong, uh, like you said, that's okay. And the other dude was, and so it was more like, okay, well, what does it mean just to be you? Because I think a lot of men and I think a lot of people in general, if we were able to be ourselves without giving two shits about what everyone else thought, right, then we'd be living a lot more meaningful life and just doing what it is that brings us happiness and joy. And again, yeah, whether that's being super masculine and talking about your feelings or vice versa, it's just you, right? And
that's easy for me because, I'm 6'5", I'm 290 pounds.
Yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah,
And so it's easy for me to go like, "I can be sensitive," you know, they're like, "Well, sure you can," because you know what I mean? Who's gonna tell you not to be or
yeah,
whatever, and so
exactly, yeah, yeah,
I, I'll acknowledge that, like, yes, it's really easy for me to kind of feel open and let my guard down around that because I physically will maintain that presence from that masculine side, right? And so no matter what, I could cry in front of you, and they go like, "Yeah, he's still scary." You know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah,
And so, so I'll kind of acknowledge that too, that it's easy from my chair to say that, right? Without
yeah,
being not having the stature, and I wish I could. I wish I could experience life through the eyes of a man that doesn't have my stature and go, I mean, but and I guess, yeah, Tyrell's yeah, and but what would I learn? Like, how much would I grow? How much growth would I have, right, from being able to walk in his shoes and have to see the world through that and go, "Yeah, well, that's" you know what I mean? I can't do that because if in doing that,
mm,
you know, I've
mm.
let too much of a guard down, I feel vulnerable then, right?
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, yeah,
What led you to that
definitely.
question, though? I think, like, I would love to hear what what does it mean to be a man? What were you guys after when you were asking that question? And then how did that perspective, that paradigm shift of asking that question now when it says, "What's it mean to be you?" But I think if we can rewind to when you were asking that question, "What's it mean to be a man?" What were you hoping to get out of the guys by asking that question?
I guess just to acknowledge that toxic masculinity, get them to talk about that, divulge that, so that we could then start to maybe challenge that. Because as we all know, there's there's the downsides of being that toxic
Yeah.
masculinity,
And
right? There's some
admittedly,
goodness
when you
to
say that, like, I wanted to tell you, like, just when you said toxic masculinity, though, for me, that, like, was like a sting, you know what I mean? Because I have a lot of resentment toward um, that statement, and I don't
mm,
disagree with it, right? But I just wanted to be honest about, like, me going like, "God damn it, I hate that we say that." You know what I mean?
yeah,
Or maybe it
yeah,
breaks my heart that we say that, right? And how did we get there, right? Because there's toxic everything, right? There's toxic femininity as well.
yeah,
But because we are very powerful, we do hold a lot of power. Ours tends to hurt more people, right?
mm, yeah,
I don't know what you wanna say about that, but when you said that, I was like, "God damn it." You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah.
I resent
I
it.
guess, thinking about it sort of, just the way that I think about things, some philosopher, would have just labeled what our behaviors as this, given it this masculinity term.
It doesn't mean it's not
Uh,
true. I'm just saying it just pisses me off.
yeah, yeah,
Do you know
yeah,
what
no,
I
I
mean?
understand. Yeah,
But
yeah, yeah,
I'm not fighting you on it either. I'm saying, like, it just that's my thing that goes boom, and it hits me. And
yeah.
I think it's a reaction a lot of masculine men tend to have, right?
Yeah, and I guess, yeah, that trigger, it might bring on, a previous experience or
Right.
something else like that
But what should our
that's
second thought be, Troy? Because that's my first thought, and I've always thought in my life, your first thought is your first thought, but I think the most important thought is, like, that second thought, right? You go,
mm,
"Yep, yep, I hate that, but also, then what am I gonna do with it?" And to me, like, how do you kind of reshape that second thought, I guess, around, you know,
yeah.
how you respond to that word toxic masculinity?
I guess, sort of when we raised it with the men, and I'll get to your point, uh, yeah, so it was to help sort of challenge within themselves, because I guess as men, we again sort of, for the men that I've worked with, and even for myself, we try to live by these identity roles, or these roles, and be the provider, yeah, be the masculine one, be the protector. Someone, there's an intruder. It's always you that's going out first. You jumping into the ocean or the fire or whatever. You're going to go get the meat and whatnot, and so forth. Um, but I guess to this point of, for some of the men in there, and that wouldn't be them, and so it was that, not only challenging it for those that maybe not seeing themselves as that, but also the other ones, because with that comes this, all right, if I am the provider, if I am then the negative connotations with that is like the stoicism. There's this, all right, I'm just hard, I don't talk, I just get on with this. And as we know, and as you've mentioned, we've got to, there's pros and cons with everything, but because we're not talking, well, we know where that leads up, right? And unfortunately, that can be that bullet that you spoke about, right? So it's about challenging these internal dialogues that might of masculinity that might lead them to what for us eventually getting to this men don't talk, we're stoic. What actually that's what we're challenging. So being able to just start the conversations about that allows us to get a little bit deeper to what it is that we're really trying to do, and that's challenge the unwanted thoughts and beliefs around being masculine. And I guess it's interesting because I think to myself personally, I've never, I think I'd sit somewhere in the middle. Like I'm by no means small. I'm physically, I've been told, man, you're a big dude. I'm not as tall as you. I'm 6'1". I'm about 300 and something pounds. So, and I've always been a bigger person. But at times I've also not seen myself as that. So, yeah, I mean, but I certainly, if someone were to ask me, like, what does it mean to be a man? Yeah, there's certainly, I still have those thoughts around a provider. But then on one side of the coin, I'm also, well, yeah, I can be a provider, but so can my wife. Uh, and, but I do understand, and I'm coming to, as I've got two young boys that are 5 and 6, coming to realize that there are roles that only men can do. I don't know what to label them as, but I know that with men that I've worked with, and even women that have been from separated relationships, or men that have come from as children of parents that have divorced, there's this they're missing out on the yin and yang, or whatever, the male and the female aspect of things. And again, I don't know what that is yet, or what I'd label it as, but I know that I think just being a male presence, you just provide that energy to a man. And I guess with my young boys, I think about when they are mucking around, I'd probably play a little bit more rough and tumble than my wife would instinctively. And I think that's something that they get. But also, I know when to draw a line, and I don't know whether it's the deepness of my voice or whatever. It just seems to hit a little bit deeper or differently than my wife who raises her voice. So yeah, it is an interesting question. What does it mean to be a man? Yeah, what does it mean to be you? And then, as you say, sort of this masculinity that can get is starting to be, I guess, because we're all talking about it now, is be just shrouded in negativity now. Is we've almost overdone it.
Well,
So
like anything, you do that where you overcorrect, right? And it's,
yeah,
I think something interesting about that provider energy, and this is a statistic I saw, but and I'm going to mess it up again. Like, I'm not that smart to remember all these things, but it talked about male, female both have jobs. Statistically, if the man loses a job, how often that leads to divorce potentially,
mm,
and then how very rarely, if your wife lost her job, that leads to divorce. And I think it's because we do carry that provider energy, or that's part of our identity, maybe
yeah,
both to ourselves and both to our spouse. And so, yeah, absolutely, of course, I mean, Tyrell's wife is our marketing director, and she's a savage. She can,
yeah,
and you actually brought that up. I think, Troy. So real quick, our last podcast we recorded yesterday
Oh yeah.
was with a guy, we just call him Coach Bob, but he's a life coach, right? And so a lot of these same kind of themes came up. A theme that came up a lot yesterday was around this idea of men creating a castle of stone that's all by itself out on an island, right? And so they've had all this success, financial success and business success, but how often men will find themselves just alone in the castle, right? You won,
yeah,
a particular game, yeah, you did a great job, you won, but there's
Yeah.
nobody there with you anymore, you know?
Mm.
You didn't do that in a way that was involved, and he compared it to, like, having your favorite kinda cake, and you build the cake, and that cake is you, and you put the frosting on, it's your favorite cake, and then, your wife or your spouse or your partner is there to then drizzle some caramel on top of it, but on a complete cake nonetheless, right? She's not
Yeah.
she's not building you up, but,
Yeah.
Tyrell, what's your thoughts? I mean,
Yeah,
you have a
I thought you broke
kick-ass.
that down pretty good. And for me, in the moment of thinking like the toxic masculinity is like toxic is negative, right? And so that negative side could be for um even the less masculine, right? And it's like the ideology of being less than and what roadblocks that might have mentally and through life. And so I never really thought about kind of like the side effects of both of that masculinity, someone that's super masculine and then someone who's, probably in their dreams wanted to play a sport or something at some point and then, um we're not all gifted with size and stuff, So, but
Well, yeah,
so
and
I
you
just
grew up the 4th brother of there's 4 of us brothers, and I'm the biggest, and we get smaller, but, what Tyrell's kinda saying without saying is the older 3 brothers, we all were D1 athletes,
Yeah.
went to college, kinda scholarships. I was a professional, athlete post-collegiate, and then Tyrell got to high school, and it was like, your brothers were the strong
yeah,
guys in
Yeah.
97
school,
pounds
and
and
he's 97 pounds as a freshman, you know?
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
And
yeah.
Interesting.
there was probably some jokes around like, "Well, what happened to you?"
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's a negative side,
So did you have to deal with
to
that
both of
masculine
that.
piece in there? Were you like, "Am I not enough? Am I?"
Yeah, I mean, I had to accept that pretty young, I think, and I didn't have to accept that, but I just did, right? And I think I took it in a route that probably wasn't in my best interest as far as like the rebellion, to like athletics, and then that turned into like how I looked at myself, fitness, like, by the time that we got back together, because he's decently older, so I'd like finished high school kind of on my own,
Yeah.
as far as the brothers around, but um, you know, fitness was never in my like it was
Yeah.
the least thing that I cared about. I moved away from that so much.
I think nobody probably would have given you any shit too, because there's 3 older brothers that you've got that
Yeah,
are really.
Yeah.
there's a couple
Yeah.
crazy ones in
But,
that mix too.
to kinda take Tyrell's story and continue it though, Troy, he came to work for us. He was a dumbass, 18-year-old. We had construction companies that we had already built. So he got out of high school, dabbled in college for about 5 minutes.
Yep.
It didn't work, and he came to work for us, and then in about 7 years after he started working for us, one of the best things the best thing he ever did, is you joined the Army, right?
Yeah.
And I
Not quite
really
that long, but
it wasn't how long was it, 5 then?
24.
Yeah. So you were 24 when you went in.
Yeah, 23, 24.
So, but, Troy, to kind of tie a ribbon around his story, I think Tyrell, whether he knew it or not, he recognized, "I need to go do my own thing." Right?
Yeah.
I've been following these brothers. I've been following my older brothers doing their thing, and it was really cool for me to see him go like, "I'm gonna go that way now,"
Mm.
and I'm gonna go be my own person and find my own thing. Uh, I mean, if we're talking about the masculinity in again a very very hyper masculine way, he wanted to be a war hero,
Yeah.
and but he did his own thing to kind of find that peace for himself, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, um, but yeah, I don't, not to take away, but it is. I don't think it'll ever not feel a little bit triggering to hear that.
Mm.
Um, but also because I have a wonderful wife, I've been able to be honest with her about a lot of those things and share that, hey, that doesn't feel very good to me, and it even happens at young ages. My daughter one time was wearing a shirt that said "Girls Rule the World," and she's 3 years older than our son, and our son was 4, I think, and he said, "Mom, that shirt really hurts my feelings," And you're like, "Oh, wow. Okay. That's a real feeling. That's real," like, and, at least in the US, we've stopped pendulum as well. Like, in order to empower women and to encourage them, we've kind of swung that pendulum too far because it wouldn't be appropriate to say "Boys rule the world" on a T-shirt. It just wouldn't. We all know. We can pretend like it'd be okay, but we all know that if we had that T-shirt, it would not be okay.
That's cool that your son was able to share that, and
Yeah.
I think you know some people I hear, we're being too soft now. And I think, yeah, like you say, you like the pendulum swings either side, sometimes too far. For me, my wife and I and our boys, we certainly encourage just to be able to talk about this stuff. Because again, we've got a generations all behind us that haven't been able to do that. And we know what the outcomes of that is. It's, yeah, like you say, and everyone's different. It's allowing someone, I remember my son had hurt himself. I was we were with my parents, and my dad's initial response was, "Oh, don't cry," and it was sort of just like, "Oh, it's okay to cry, son," because it hurts.
Yeah,
It's okay. We sort of just encouraging that process of it, so that it's not, a lot of people that I work with, it's just this unresolved
for
stuff
sure.
and stuff that's there, right? And if we'd have just taken care of it there in the moment, it wouldn't have, extrapolated to this massive big ball
Yes.
and chain that it is.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
yeah, no, I thought that was cool that your son was able to say that to you
Yeah,
guys.
and I think that it's that idea that, like, what you touched on there is that, um, that we're maybe missing with the idea of toxic masculinity is going, "And also it's not your fault, and also we love
Mm.
you." You know
Yeah,
what I mean? And, like, we've got your
yeah,
back, and, you know, a lot of other things that could be said with that statement, that would feel really good as a man to go, "Oh, awesome, so you see me," right?
yeah,
And you see
yeah.
that, yeah, I also had to grow up with that, like, I think everybody says, "You are the cause, you are the reason for this issue we have," and I go, "Well, yeah, but we had to grow up with that." Like, you guys
Mm.
don't know the weight of
Yeah,
carrying your whole life either.
yeah, good
And
point.
so and I think if somebody said, "With all the love in the world, I'm sorry that that was given to you," it would come across very differently, you know what I mean? Um,
Yeah,
it
that's
doesn't.
cool because it
It like
allows you to then decide, all right, I don't have to carry this anymore. Like you're saying, I can let
sure,
that go.
that'd be
I
nice.
can,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
that'd be really nice not to, you know?
yeah,
But nonetheless, right, here we are, um, carrying it, right?
yeah,
And it's an honor, I think, too, at the same time.
I think too, like moving back a little bit, you talked about just like the gender roles. There are some things that a woman provides, and then there's some things a man provides. And I think, we have kids in the same age group,
hmm
and I think it's evident then, obviously, like a baby, we don't make milk, we don't provide that food,
yeah,
right? And
yeah,
so there's those roles, but at least in society, and as we're coming up into it now, it's like that emphasis doesn't have to be so much on that role. We're not, and we're not hunting and gathering. We don't have someone that has to be with kids,
mm,
24/7. Um, so then the provider piece is just making money, right?
Yeah,
Essentially, because you're
mm,
going to buy your food, you're going to pay for this, pay for that. And so anybody can provide. There's no
yeah,
more,
right.
yeah,
but those roles are so important where it's like, and breaking that down where it's like, I want to be the same emotional level to my kids through their life as my wife is. I
yeah,
don't want them to go to my wife for,
Yeah,
you know, uh, when they're searching, guidance while they're sad. And I want them to be able to go to my wife and search for strength and guidance in that department too. And I
yeah.
think we do,
You guys
but
do a great job.
and I think as a society, but that toxic piece is just we're so stuck in those ways of like, I need to provide for you.
yeah. It's
And you can
interesting.
provide us.
Your thought there made me think about how I've spoken with my wife. I feel like I don't know if it's this generation of men now because we're seeing the shift. We're in a really difficult space. We're in a space where one we were taught to be masculine and stoic and all of that stuff, but now we're society is moving this other way where now we're being having to be uh, emotionally regulated, being able to talk about our feelings. But for a lot of us, we were never taught that. So how can we do something we don't even know how to do? So I feel like it's like, so I have empathy for, because at a point before I started working in mental health, I was certainly that. Again, my father was, and like a lot of people, all of that stuff we've spoken about. So I've had to learn that while also accommodating, yeah, my children and trying to teach them. So I'm learning. on the go with while trying to teach them, and a lot of men that aren't in these spaces are still having to be sort of held up to the status of, well, you should be this because that's the way society's moving now. But again, if we don't know how to do that, you don't know how to do that, right? So it's sort of, I appreciate some of the men that come in and I talk to about that. I just say, brother, yeah, I mean, it's difficult, right? And sometimes it's just nice, as you guys will know, just to know that this is difficult. Like, let's just put that out there that, man, this is bloody hard. And to know that, yeah, you're not the only one out there struggling with it. Because, yeah, I know when I became a father, I struggled a lot with that transition for sure.
And then it goes back to, loving yourself and being true to yourself, or being your truest self. But, you're kind of intertwined with,
Yeah,
am I this warrior? Am I this lover? Am I,
And you're both, but you're both.
Yeah,
You're
I
both at
think
the same
so.
time, right?
I think
Like,
you
yeah.
gotta wear those hats, and I think that's okay. And I think the toxic piece is putting yourself into one peg.
Yeah. It'd be great
You
if
know,
there's a different word for it, but nonetheless, like,
yeah.
it's the word that we've used, and
yeah,
it's a thing. And so, I mean, so with all of that, man, like, you've gone to
It,
rivers, you've
I want to,
yeah,
but it's
go.
funny because I guess we've actually never talked about this before,
Right.
and to see you kind of actually like squirm in your chair a little bit
Yeah.
with the whole toxic masculinity,
Yeah.
it's like I've never looked at it through your eyes, and how it doesn't trigger me at all, because it's like I don't feel like I feel like I'm in the middle, right? I'm not over
yeah,
here, I'm not over
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
I try to hang with people over here on the far, and I
Yeah.
try to hang with people over here on the far, and in between, I guess. And
Yeah.
so I don't know what I'm getting at, except that it just opens my eyes that would trigger you, where for me it's like, why?
Yeah.
You know?
I think because I think, Troy, you just get to, like, have the whole background on our family, but, our dad, and I'm so cautious to talk,
Yeah.
um, our dad wasn't super present. He was a heavy, heavy drinker, um, and I'm the oldest of 4 brothers. It was 4 of us brothers in the house.
mm,
For the most of our lives, there was not really a female around, um, and so I've always been that oldest kind of
mm,
male, had to take on fathering at a really, really young age. And so I think that's probably where that comes from, T, is just,
Yeah.
uh, I didn't have a choice. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like, there wasn't
mm,
Where I had a female in my life the
yeah.
whole time,
Yeah, we have different moms.
okay,
And so, um,
which is kind of crazy to think about. Like,
it
yeah, yeah,
is. And so
this is fun.
I didn't have a lot of that. And so I think for me, it
mm,
was, um, I think the reason I feel like maybe some resentment toward the statement is like, I did what I had to do to, like, protect my little
yeah,
brother and to
yeah,
be there, and don't you dare fucking tell me it's wrong. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
And it's that's hard. It's like, great. From where you, not you, Troy, but, like, from where the world stands, I go, that's easy for you to say. You know what I mean?
yeah,
But
yeah,
you didn't have to walk in my shoes in that way. And, like, I'll admit, like, the armor I had to put on
yeah,
Yeah.
as a little boy to be that, you know what I mean? Like that, I don't know. I I don't know the rest of that sentence except for that. I think that's part of where it comes from, is I didn't have a choice in that, you know?
mm, mm, yeah. I like how you put that, and I guess it makes me think about how, that was, yeah, it's part of your identity, and again, you feel so, like, if I were you, I'd feel strongly associated or attached to that, because, yeah, like you say, that helped me get through difficult times. It's helped me get through shit. And if someone comes along and just starts putting negativity on the thing that helped me get through this, then I'm probably gonna feel like, nah, shut up, like, stuff you, like,
Yeah.
you don't know what I had to go through to do this, and this got me
Yeah.
through that. So don't dare you say that to this thing that helped me get through that. So
No, I mean, yeah, I had a job. I cleaned an apartment complex in 4th grade. You know what I mean? I had
wow,
a job. 4th grade, I had a checking account. You know
But I
what I
think,
mean?
but also to be able to sit and say, like, it's not a wrong statement always either.
It isn't.
And
And
that
I know it.
being
And
able
I
to see
could
that.
have
And I
just,
think that's growing now,
yeah,
probably your wife, right? Being able to shed that armor and move
she's
into
awesome.
a
Yeah.
new skin of you.
Yeah. It is, and
Mhm.
I think just for me, I was like, I can't sit here and not say that that doesn't hit me in a way, you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Mm.
And I took 40 minutes away from Troy, this beautiful thing Troy's
We
doing.
haven't talked about fishing yet.
We haven't even talked about fishing, but
Oh,
but
you're all good. You're all good. No, I'm really enjoying this. This is the stuff that I love. You know, this stuff fuels my fire. I've been, I guess, when I started my journey in mental health, it was because my wife got pregnant and when I needed a job, essentially. And this was when I was living in Auckland, which is the biggest city in New Zealand. We were living there, needed a job. I was just coming out of some postgraduate study. Uh, well, I actually put that on hold because my wife got pregnant anyway. I applied everywhere, and then this mental health organization said, "Sure, you can come and work for us. Here's a role as a community support worker." You know, if we think about like the rungs of the ladder, you know, starting at the bottom there. And that was working with a lot of people with sort of chronic and severe mental illness, like schizophrenia, bipolar, all of that type of stuff. And so that helped dismantle a lot of stigma for me. I still remember, and I probably won't, like when I told my mum, she was like, "Oh, be careful," you know, like as if so this connotation of, "Oh, they're crazy," you know, that was
Yep.
still
yeah,
very
Yep.
much there. Um, and then by working with these people, you know, it really helped me to dismantle that and see that actually, you know, we're not above them. We're just walking alongside them. You know, they're a person that's living with schizophrenia. They aren't schizophrenic. You know, they're just living with that. You know, and um, I guess to be able to see that, and then I moved back to where I'm originally from, Topol, where I am right now, and just happened to walk in and apply. It was good timing into this health coach role in which I'm in at the moment, which is a big, well, I guess I've shifted into a mental health focus. But just to sort of see that I've found what it is I'm going to be doing for the rest of my life. I know that. I know I'll be doing it to different capacities, and I'm open to different opportunities. But I think I've found, and I'm very fortunate because again, I work with people that are still trying to find that, and who knows? I know life happens, and I might find something different, but I firmly believe that this is what I'll be doing for the rest of my life. So being able to talk with people, especially men, openly, candidly, just about stuff that we would have kept to ourselves. Oh man, it just lights my fire, right? So I'm more than happy to talk about this stuff. So
It's it's a big one for us. I mean, you always say it's, the adventure, we're all about the adventure,
yeah,
and that's, but most importantly, like here, as we sit here, we wanna talk about the man on the adventure, and like,
yeah,
and these conversations are important, and sometimes it's just like what makes you tick, what makes you wake up and work out
mm,
and whatnot, and
yeah,
but we love every bit about this kinda combo.
yeah, because that's why I I think so often, men, it I believe going out and for us, we hunt a lot and we fish a lot, and
yeah,
it's a mental health practice for us. It is, I
mm,
think, whether men admit it or not,
mm,
especially when you get to go sit in a boat with another guy and you get to sit
yeah,
shoulder to shoulder and you're not having to
yeah,
do this cup of coffee face to face. We're not very good at that. Um,
yeah,
but I think if we can sit on the side of a mountain and look in a long distance, and then I so often find that that conversation comes up, right? Those things come up. How you doing, man? And if you ask that in, to breakfast, they go, I'm good, man. Good, work's good. Life's good.
mm,
But
mm.
I think when you find yourself on a river or in a, on side of a mountain and you say, how are you doing, man? They go, not great, dude. Not great. The marriage has been hard lately or, whatever. And so I think that's why so often is, our company is focused on really on gear and the adventure of that. But I think for us, we're lucky enough on the podcast side of our marketing plan is we get to go into the real reasons, and so that's here. And so kind of with that, bud, like I would love to I think one of the things I love so much is you've asked the question a lot of times, can we have a chat?
Mm.
Walk me through that. You say, in your words, mate, can we have a chat? I'm
Yeah.
gonna record this. Where from that, where does that go? Like what, like just kind of give us a breakdown on that. And more importantly than just the technical side of that, like for you, what you're looking for from that. And then, and then in general, like what are you finding more often than not that guys have to say when they're on the river?
Yeah. So I'll typically, as probably expected, I'll be walking. Oh, when I first started this, I would do this while fishing, and then I quickly realized that it was if I'm walking to sort of see someone and then I get sidetracked by a fish, my attention goes to the fish. So I quickly learned, like, all right, we're either doing the chats or we're fishing. Uh, so um, typically I will, when I'm out there looking to chat with someone, someone that's on their own. Although I have thought to myself about wanting to approach a group. I'd be really keen to do that, especially I
Yeah.
do remember a group. Unfortunately, I had to leave, but there was this group of young men there. They looked like they were in their mid-20s. I would have loved to have approached them and just get a sort of a group conversation going. And one day I might if the opportunity arises. But typically someone that's on their own, and take a deep breath and then go about asking them. I just said it's sort of, I've got a way of saying that, which I've recently just changed. But I'll just ask them. Sometimes it might be, hey, how's the fishing going, or but more often than not, hey mate, how you going? And then I'll just get straight into. I go around chatting with anglers about mental health and life. Would you be open to having a chat? And sometimes it's, well, like I said before, often it's no thanks. I'm just out here just sort of doing my own thing, and sweet as. And then we might start chatting off camera. If someone says yes, then it's usually all fantastic because they've said yes. And then from there, they might say, like the gentleman of the video that you watched, he wanted to keep his anonymity. So we, after shooting, because for that video and on all the videos I've done so far, I've got a camera on my shoulder recording that. And it's still recording, and I've just cut it out, his name and so forth. But then we just introduce each other, and right after that he said, "Oh, I do this particular role. I'm in this particular job, so I want to maintain my anonymity." So he and I obviously got to know each other personally and know his name and what he does. And then uh, typically I'll just ask them if it's so at the beginning when I first started, I used to have the person sort of just stand there and it'd be like an interview. And then
Right.
maybe that was when I first started, and I did about 4 of those, and I just found like it's just not working. Like it's good. I had some really good chats, uh, but it just seems mechanical. So I thought it just naturally drifted to, all right, man, you just keep fishing, and
So
I'll just
do you
stand
go
over
over
here.
and mic them up? Do you put a mic on their
Yeah,
lapel? Okay, I'll mic you up.
yeah, yeah,
You just
yeah.
keep fishing, and if I can, I'm gonna ask you a couple questions.
Yeah, pretty much. I started out without one, and because I just use my phone for these videos,
Yeah.
and so I started without the mic, and then you get all this, obviously this sort of ambient noise and whatnot. So when I got a mic, and I'm slowly sort of just upgrading as I go, as I can afford. I got that. Sometimes some men are like, "What? I don't need that." You go to
Yeah, yeah.
ask them if they can put a mic on. So it's like, okay, sweet as, I don't want to sort of. They've already kind of they've said yes to this. I don't want to disrupt that and this
Yep.
become
Yep.
like an altercation of some sort that's unnecessary.
Yeah.
So I just roll. And fortunately, uh, the camera on my phone is still good enough. And then, post production, I sort of, just an edit, try and make it sound as good as clear as I can. And then it's now morphed into, I'll stand over the side, and you just keep fishing, and I'll ask some questions, and we just go with that. And uh, I try my best, and I always say to everyone beforehand, much like you've just said to me, we'll edit anything out, or I'll edit anything out that you don't want in this. Uh, my aim in my culture, we call it mana. You may have heard about that. I know like Dwayne Johnson talks about that a lot. But so in Māori culture, we call it mana. I guess if I were to put an English word to that, it's probably self-esteem, self-respect, and so forth. So I say to them, like, I want you to look as best as I possibly can on the video. So that's my intention here. I'm not going to, because I've sat with some conversations and I know, given, I guess, my professional experience, I could dig deeper. I know I could. I've had times where I could have done that, but I've held off because, you just read the room, right? Like, they're already getting up to a point where this is heavy on them. I'm not pushing more, because if I were to, again, I'm pushing for virality. I'm not about that. So I'm a firm believer that if anyone watches my video, it's because of the genuineness, authenticity of it all. It's just a byproduct of a genuine chat. Anyway, so yeah, I sort of preface all of that prior to getting my phone out. And yeah, typically, if they've said yes to begin with, I've never had anyone say yes, and that's understood what I'm about. Say, oh no, I no longer want to have this chat. Sometimes I
Yeah.
might show them previous work that I've done. Unfortunately, now I've got sort of like this catalog of work that I can show people if they are interested, and sort of, if there's any skepticism or who's this chat,
Yeah.
just
If
ask
they ask
me.
you why, they say, "Well, why do you wanna do this?" What do you say?
Yeah, definitely. So I say it just like what I told you guys. The aim is to continue to normalize this stuff. I know we are seeing a lot of this in society now, and I did a sort of a write up on the 2025, let's say, season of the takeaways that I found from talking to the anglers, and I mentioned in that, the awareness is everywhere now. It's a big thing. Well, we're in a podcast at the moment talking about this stuff, and there's many of this podcasts and other people doing
Awareness
this
of what,
type of
brother?
stuff. Pardon?
Awareness of what? Awareness of
Awareness
what?
of, I guess, it's okay to talk for men. Awareness that you are not alone, even if you are struggling. It's okay to talk. It's okay to raise or go and seek help. That type of stuff. Because even though at times, because I sit in this space, I know that it might seem like it's going on a lot. There's still pockets, and some big pockets in society where it's not. There's still very much people staying, keeping to themselves. And that's why, as you mentioned before, we're still seeing, like 8 out of 10 people that are taking their life are men. So uh, it's contributing. It's my contribution, I say, to society, to help. It's my little, my 2 cents to society to try and help people. And I've had messages from many of the different videos that I've had that have resonated differently for viewers. Say that, yeah, no, I really needed that video right now. I'm going through, might be something similar. So to hear another man talk about that provides me with confidence, and maybe to challenge myself and talk
Is it
about this.
is it just the talking about it, or is it just that them going, "Hey, this is hard?" Like, to hear another man go like, like, "I also have that struggle,"
I think it's
and
a bit of,
admitting that it's hard, and what is it, you know?
I'd say it's both, based on the feedback that I've received. Definitely, it's nice to hear that, because a lot of people, and even in the work that I do, you know, and this is one of the posts that I've got stamped to my profile, is through all of the men's groups that I've done, the one recurring theme, and the only theme, is that throughout all of the groups, is that I thought I was alone. That's the one thing that just came up every single time. I thought I was alone. And so there's obviously a lot to be said about that, right? People are still thinking that they're alone, and then we know that, isolation is one of the first typical character behaviors that anyone
Yeah.
goes through when they start going through a difficult time. So I think being able to, so to what you said, I think just watching it for some people, that seeing that someone's put up their hand and actually acknowledge that, yeah, I'm going through it. This is a tough time. And some of the people that I've spoken with have gone we're going through it and going out the other side, and some are still right in the middle of it. Especially some of the grief stuff that I've spoken to people about. To hear, yeah, as you say, someone just put up their hand and say, actually, man, I'm not doing so great because of this. As a
Yeah.
viewer, to hear like, man, so I'm not doing that great either, bro.
What would you tell somebody that finds themselves, they watch that video and they go, okay, I'm not alone, but nonetheless, they still are, right? We're just on Instagram at this point,
Hmm,
right? And so then after that, right, they've got their phone in their hand. I know what I would tell my friends is like, then call me, right? Call me
yeah,
and
I,
say, hey, bud, like, can we have coffee? Can we go get a lift or can we go for a hike together? But
yeah,
I don't think we're good. We're not good at that next step. So a guy, you've got 19, how many, I don't know how many followers you've got. It's like 20,000 or more. What is it?
yeah, something like that.
A
Yeah,
lot,
yeah.
right? So you got 20,000 men that watch that and they go, hey, I feel the same.
Hmm,
And I think for me, my question is, okay, well, what are you going to do about it then? Right?
hmm,
Because you can recognize, hey, Troy, I feel the same. I feel alone. And I think my question is, okay, then there's a second step that needs to happen there, right?
yeah.
Now you've recognized it. That's great. But you got to do something about it too.
Hmm.
Right?
And
So
yeah,
how do
that's
you
a really good point, and that's often the hardest step, right? That
yeah,
is, and what we, I guess, as most practitioners or mental health workers or healthcare workers, is trying to help make that easier for people to reach out for help. And I've been thinking about doing a video. I haven't done it yet because I have dabbled in doing my own content alongside these chats.
you should. Yeah.
But one of the videos was because I always ask, what advice would you give to someone going through a difficult time in these chats? And I'd say pretty much 95% of the time it's go talk to someone. And yeah, that's fair. There's fair. Yeah, sure, sound advice. But that's, yeah, as you highlighted, that's hard.
Really
And,
hard.
and not
We
easy at
call,
all.
right? You pick up your phone, you go, who should I talk to? Because
Yeah.
I've got to enter into that conversation as a man with masculinity, toxic or not, right? And
Mm,
and admit to another guy like, hey, I'm calling you, not just because I want to go whatever a guy does, golfing, fishing, whatever.
yeah,
Um, I'm calling you because I actually would like to sit down and talk about my feelings, right? And that's a heavy thing to say. It's a heavy thing to hear, right?
definitely. And I think, I don't know, excuse me, I'm not sure what the percentage of is, but like I wouldn't say that if I was struggling to speak to someone. Like I wouldn't go, "Oh man, I'm really struggling here. I just need you to help me." Like I wouldn't say that. It would still be really subtle. Like, okay, I'm still trying to maneuver around the awkwardness of
Yep.
trying to reach out to someone
Yep.
while also being all over the place psychologically at the moment. So I think, there's no one easy answer, obviously, otherwise we'd all know it, right? And we'd be doing it. But I think for me, and just in my opinion, and only, and this is from sure working with men in this space, but also going through difficult times myself, is that some people find it easier to reach out, some don't. So I think to have all options available and just to know that to for me to keep hammering that home, that this narrative that even though you are struggling right now, it's not permanent. It's a difficult time, but you can get through this, and there are options available when you're ready. And for me, I really found it beneficial to have things like social media just to help at that time regulate myself and know that, or maybe I can do this. And again, this is very personal to me, and everyone's different. But when I was going through tough times, like, this might have been like the toughest time, one of the toughest times in my life, which was about 11 years ago now. Instagram, I don't even know if that was a thing then, but uh, I went to YouTube because I didn't want to go and reach out for help. I found, like, for me, one of the biggest things personally is to think, for someone to think that I can't deal with this, like I'm weak because I can't deal with this on my own. Therefore I'm
Yes.
weak, and that's something I struggle with. So for me to have a resource like this gentleman on YouTube, he doesn't know who I am. I never interacted with his content or commented. Probably should have, but I just was. He helped change my life, and learn new skills to help get through this. So that, I mean, again, I'm only talking to one person here. So I was able to, even though I probably could have done with going to chat with someone professionally, I found what I needed in content online. And that's probably also why I'm drawn to create this stuff, because even though I'm one of N equals one here, right? But like, there will be other men like me that are out there that will see this content and be like, or maybe I can learn from this, or maybe I'll go and seek out other creators, and that'll help me shift. And then eventually I'll go and speak to people, because that's what I ended up doing. Then I went and spoke with like my mum, and at that time, she was really, my parents, they were the only ones that I had at that time to sort of be able to talk to.
Where were you at this point in life? I mean, if you don't
So I
mind touching.
was, I would have been 25 at the time. I'm 36. I just gone through a breakup, and that was sort of my first. I was with her for a number of years, and then we'd broken up at that time. So yeah, we broke up. My car got stolen, and with that, had all my golf clubs. I used to play golf. I wanted to be a professional athlete, professional golfer. Um, they all got stolen, so all my gear got stolen, and I had this, I guess, when we talk about grief, not all grief is associated with someone dying. I had this dream of wanting to be a professional golfer, and at that time it was just all up in the air. And I decided that I was like to replace all my stuff, because I didn't have insurance that was going to cost thousands of dollars. At that point in time, I'd just gone through my first big breakup, and looking at things now, it could be because I've gone through it all, and we could all do this, look back and be like, man, you could have just done it. It's not even that difficult. But well, not that it's not difficult, but when you're in the moment there for the first time, especially, you've fallen in love with someone, especially, and it's your first major breakup. It's like everything is just spiraling. It's really hard to deal with. And to the fact that I didn't have any of the knowledge that I have now around this stuff, I was still that. So it was a really difficult time, and I was in a pretty dark space there at time. And so I guess from that, that was when I'd show up, I'd be crying to myself in my room and stuff like that at times, and just thinking like, fuck, what's here for me next, and all of this type of shit. And thankfully, one of the good things my parents taught me, especially my mum, was never give up. Never give up, no matter what it is. And so, despite the dark times, it was, I've got a lot of resilience. So, eventually, started to cry less and start to, I guess, again, take on board some of the lessons from the YouTuber that I engage with, and start to look at, okay, she broke up with me. What did I do that was, what part of me is there that needs to be fixed? What do I need to address in myself so that this shit doesn't happen again? Because I was very, very insecure, be controlling behavior with her. And even though I was doing that at the time, I couldn't quite control that. So to be able to get out of that and sort of be quite low provided the platform to look inward and be like, well, if you don't change this, then this shit's just going to keep repeating. And I don't want that, I wanted a loving relationship. So yeah, I went to work. And so to have that as an option there, I think if YouTube and all of that wasn't an option, I don't know what I would have done. I probably would have had to have gone and spoken to someone. But having that there made it easier for me to make that step that you talk about. And that step doesn't have to be talking physically face to face or even over a camera to someone, right? I was, in some ways, I guess, reciprocating with the YouTube guy that was giving me help,
Yep.
because I was
Yeah.
learning in a way. challenging my own thoughts and feelings and so forth. And now I know that telehealth is a big thing, or it's becoming a lot bigger. So there's that thing. So I would definitely encourage people to definitely. I'd say to them, yeah, talking is hard. It's still, even though we're trying to do that, it's bloody hard. We're still probably a far way away from making that being easy. So just to provide as many options as possible to people to know that talking doesn't just, again, have to be talking to someone face to face. It could be just consuming this content, consuming my content, consuming your content, whatever's content, just to help settle. Because when we are in these elated states, you're spiraling. It's really hard to sort of think rationally. It's all these irrational thoughts. So, and that's, I think, the big thing that fishing does for a lot of anglers, is just help settle.
Yeah. And I think, it's cool to hear. I love to hear you talk about like the YouTube and like finding someone, because it's like the tools we have, right? It's the tools that were possessed. If you were in college,
Yeah.
and you need some help, like YouTube wasn't there, right? You're gonna have to go
No.
read a book or whatever. But we have these tools, and like you talked about, like a little piece, just make a little tweak here and a little tweak here, and then now maybe I'm feeling more confident. I can reach out. Maybe I found a hobby off YouTube, right? Maybe I
Right.
started fishing.
Yeah.
And then fishing put me in a place where I had a conversation with somebody. And we probably take for granted having tribes, having
Well,
people.
thank you. That's where I was going to go. I was like, let's talk about, maybe when you're in
But
that
if you
really
don't
low
have a
spot,
tribe,
right?
where do you start? Like,
But what about like, even I think, for people listening, like I would encourage them, if you don't have that tribe of men yet or women yet, don't wait till you're in that low spot
yeah,
to start to build it, right? Like it's a thing like dig your well before you need the water,
Mm,
right?
mm,
I mean, you
mm,
look at pioneers coming across, they had two things, right? It was like food and water. And as soon as they said this is going to be home, it was because there was water there or they knew they could dig a well.
mm.
And so I think about it like as men, especially because we're horrible at this, how, Tyrell and I have talked a lot about this, Troy. We have a legendary group of men. We meet every other Wednesday.
Nice.
We meet at 6:30 in the morning. There's between 8 and 25 guys. It's not a church group. It's not a counseling group. It's literally, we like, I'm just going to grab my phone because there's a text been going around before we sat down. And
so our good friend Joel, he kind of runs it all, makes sure,
yeah,
um, we have a topic for each week or every
Nice.
other week, and
yeah,
dives, and he's our mediator, and um, this isn't what he does on the regular. It's
Yeah.
yeah,
it's
he's
just
not a part of a group.
group.
It's some dudes putting in some effort, and
Yeah. And so this week it's going to be somebody else in the group is going to lead the conversation. And I just grabbed I wouldn't normally look at the phone, but it says, we're going to dive deeper into the concept of surrender. Right.
Wow.
And so that's the topic. And none of us
Cool.
are counselors. We're just a bunch of dumbasses getting together. And, he says, show up having thought about your values, your value system, and why it's your value system. Right.
Mm,
And now we've got a bunch of guys in this group that are just having young babies. I think I'm one of the older ones in the group. So it's interesting because we'll talk about, okay, I've got a 17-year-old daughter. Our other brother has a 19-year-old daughter. So a lot of times the conversation will shift to our side of the table when it comes to that side of fatherhood or marriage or whatever.
yeah.
But nonetheless, the point being, dig your well, right? Start to
Mm,
find this group started with 4 or 5 of us going, hey, wouldn't it be neat if we could sit down every other week and just talk about whatever. Like I'm
yeah.
struggling in my career, I'm struggling in my marriage. I'm struggling with, whatever the topic is, just not being consistent in my life. That comes up a lot of just around consistency. And we tend to I drew a diagram on the dry erase board in our room when we were talking about we kind of cross the same, let's call it 8 topics. We kind of just dance, and we kind of do a circle and we hit these 8 topics not in any order on purpose. It just seems to happen as I watch the group because, we kind of talk about, the same man never crosses the same river twice.
Mm,
Right. And so
mm,
over the years, we've had this group and, one of the guys had some frustration, Joel, who's the leader. He said he called me one time 2 years ago, and he goes, "Man, I feel like we're just talking about the same stuff
Mm,
over and over and over again, and I feel like should we have new topics or new this?" I said, "No, man, and the reality is like, we talk about it here in March, and then we talk about it again in November, and it's the same topic, but it's a different man, it's a different
mm,
group having that conversation, but,
yeah.
um, I mean, I think the idea of where does a guy go to start to be connected to a group like that? We're lucky because 'cause we've baked it into our lives, just because we're lucky enough to have men around us that wanted to have that conversation, but most men don't have that. I recognize that.
Mm,
But I think from my end here on the podcast, I'd say, how do we encourage guys to start to develop that? Right. And whether you find it like you did in golf, Troy, or if it's in fishing, I mean, those things are so good, right? Golfs or foursomes.
mm,
Fishing, a boat has 3 guys on it, or
mm,
depending on the boat, you can have more. But, hunting is usually a 2 or 3 person thing. Or if you're doing like for us, like there's guys that bird hunt and there's 6 guys in a pit, and I've always felt like that pit is a great spot for that. But where would you say guys go to start that, Troy? And how do they, you know,
yeah. I mean,
find
that's a really good question, and something that I think is really important too. I guess I'm just gonna quickly finish off to
Yeah,
the
thank you.
talking
Sorry.
spot.
For the listeners that had the pee break, they all know where I've been if they've been listening.
Yeah, yeah.
Didn't
You
miss
hopefully, well,
the
this will
diapers.
flow well.
Yeah.
You can just edit this into that part. But
We're gonna
uh,
we'll let them know what's up. This is real, man. Yeah.
uh, that with all the people that I've spoken to, as I've said, everyone says, just go and talk with someone. As we spoke earlier on about how this pendulum swings, I guess it's really cautious about hammering home that as well, because then it can be, well, why don't you just go and talk to someone? It's like, we'll just go and
Yeah.
talk to someone. That's the answer. Why aren't you doing it? And so it's like anything, it's softening that and knowing that it's like, if I'm again talking to as if I was talking to someone. And in my opinion, to try and make that second step, as it says, I would just say that it's okay to not be okay. You're not alone. And that if you need to reach out with someone, allow yourself the time to go and do that when it's right for you, and continue to, I guess, and use all avenues that you need to in your own time, whether it be, yeah, like I did with YouTube, whether it be with
Yeah.
fishing and
And
so
I think
forth.
if you're
Just
lucky, you reach out and you get to find somebody that you get to help. And there's nothing
mm,
that makes you feel better in the world than being
yeah,
of servant, be a servant to somebody else. And so
yeah,
if you really want to heal, if the guy that I'm having a shit day and he calls his buddy and you talk and the other guy goes, I am too, and you find yourself helping that guy over a cup of coffee, you're going to come away feeling really, really great,
hundred
because you got
percent,
to give of yourself to somebody, which is the best feeling in the world.
yeah. And that's why why I left the video that I did very early on, before I started doing the fish and chat stuff about you are not alone. The end there, I talk about how, if you need to talk, DM me. I will always respond to anyone that does message me, and I have so far. And just to know that even though we don't know each other, there's still someone that acknowledges. And again, just to know that you're not alone, I think, even though you're not talking to someone yet, just to know that you're not alone actually does quite a lot. Because again, every single person, every single man that I spoke with, in every single group that I've done, it all came up every single time. So yeah, there are stages in which we go through our challenges, and sometimes just initially, just acknowledging the difficulty and to know that you're not alone provides, whether it be comfort or stability, or be able to settle to eventually tackle what it is that you need to go through, or what you're going through. I guess in terms of your question, a lot of the groups that I've held, we all, especially one group in particular that I'm thinking of, our aim there was to create a brotherhood. Even though, so all these men were all strangers, no one knew each other. Our goal behind the scenes was, as well as supporting them, questioning them, and that, allowing them to talk up and then let go and then move forward, was creating this brotherhood. Because as you mentioned, no, as you're alluding to, we can do these groups or we can do this work, And when we're together, it feels amazing. I feel like we can tackle this whatever it is that's going on doesn't seem so huge. But then when we go away into our own worlds, it's like, oh shit, here we go. No, maybe I don't have that support anymore. It just feels enormous, and it's a hill or a mountain that I can't climb. So when we were, and that's why we were trying to, with every group, we tried to create a brotherhood. And I guess in terms of one of the again, I don't know the answer to this, but I think from what my experience of facilitating that and my own personal experience, I think one of the key fundamentals there is probably an element of vulnerability, being able to be vulnerable, not, and that's before you're even in the group, because it takes the amount of vulnerability to even get there, right?
Right.
A
Yeah.
lot of the men would often say when we had these groups, we'd start the day, you could just see on their faces they're like nervous as shit, right? They're just, because again, they don't know anyone. They're like, I'm here to come to a group and there's all these other men, like everyone, some look intimidating, some look not intimidating,
Yep.
like,
Yeah. And they've all
and
got it figured out. Like I don't have it figured out, but I'm sure they do.
yeah,
Right.
exactly, yeah. And
Yeah.
that came up so much, and it's like, oh no, I don't have anything to worry about. He's got it way tougher than me. Well, you're still
Yeah.
going
Yeah.
through shit, like it doesn't
Yeah.
matter how big or small it is, it's creating an unwanted response. So yeah, vulnerability, I'd say, would be a big one. And so to help, I guess, tackle that is to, yeah, sure, make it as inviting as possible. And that's why I feel like for me, because we'd sit on this question, well, how do we get people to come? Because these groups, the biggest thing that my colleague and I struggled with was um, getting people to come. We'd have people that would say yes, and then the day before we'd be sending text reminders, and like 50% of people just wouldn't show up. And that was consistent with each cohort. So we'd be asking these, and that's what I guess helped me to move toward, well, what would I want? I asked myself, if I was going to go to a group, what the hell would I want? And funnily, even though it's interesting, like I thought about the group that I ran, and I probably wouldn't even attend my own group, like because and then which made me think, well, yeah, you need to change that then. So then I started thinking, all right, how do I do that? And that's when fishing came in. Like I can get, if someone had a group that was about fishing, which then
Yeah.
morphed into that, sign me
Yeah.
up. I'm there. So to, I guess, the next pillar to speak and alongside vulnerability would be make it enjoyable, or get whatever tangible thing we're doing. It's got to be something that really, like free food or something like that. It's fishing. It's something to get them there. Because when we spoke about this group and we started talking about, oh, we're gonna, allow you to talk about and create safe spaces and all this, it's really intimidating. You're like, holy shit, I'm gonna like divulge my deep secrets. Like, no thanks. Like, so
Yeah.
it's,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, you got to sell it to some extent, right? So,
Yeah.
and for me, that's why a recent group that I started last year was a fishing group, men's mental health fishing group, fly fishing group through work. That was the catalyst. That was the driver, right, for the mental health chats, all of that stuff. And then I think in addition to that is what you made was his name Joel, I think you said,
Yeah.
or
Joel.
yeah, you've got to
Yeah.
have someone
Joel.
that's got to be leading it. You need,
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
you don't have someone that's facilitating or sort of being the backbone behind it all, it's sort of easily to just crumble apart, and fall away. That's what we saw with some of the groups, that even though we encouraged it, we didn't want to be the backbone because we're just continuing to facilitate. We wanted them to create these spaces for themselves moving forward in their own environments. So the groups that had someone like a Joel were the ones that stayed together and were successful. Those that didn't, no one sort of really put their hand up, even though we were sort of encouraged it and started it. It just, once we caught up with them, excuse me, and I had asked them about how things were, it's like, oh, I haven't heard from such and such for a while. I haven't, sort of just fallen by the wayside. So I think that being the third, let's call it another pillar, would be having someone, yeah, that is the lead or whatever you want to call it. And then I guess the the next thing I would add, if I wanted to, would be to really, well, not sure, I guess set rules. I mean, this is hard to do, but you know, standards or boundaries around whatever's said in the group, like stays in the group. Like you don't
Yeah.
go talking about shit to Joe and Mary down the road, that I
Yeah.
said in secrecy or in confidence, I should say, to you. As well as, we're not here to, sure, we've all got opinions, but we're not here to, not a bigotry or anything like that, right? We're not here to just squash someone else's, again, mana, self-esteem, because you want to get your point across, So, but doing that in an uplifting way too, not like this is the rule, like like it's we're here together and encouraging and a strength-based philosophy and stance, that we're all together so that we have each other's back, and it becomes, even though there are disagreements, sure, it's still settled there and we can have them, but do it in a justified and uplifting way, because that's what all debate should be like, and you're going to have that disagreement, right? So not let it turn into this fist fight or whatever, like,
Yeah.
like,
We've had very few disagreements. I think when you do sit down and you're bringing your stuff to the table.
And I think when you're on this topic too, it's not always this is the solution, right? You can't make the horse drink the water.
mm,
Right.
So I think with the idea of like we can share our feelings, our stories, and you might resonate, a little bit different, and you might take it different, but it's that safe space of we share and we're searching for advice, just, our older peers or someone who's been through it. We want your advice, but when it comes down to it, I'm going to make my decisions real time.
Right.
mm,
And whether I'm using you in the back of my head or what we talked about or it formulated my plan, I think that's huge.
Yeah.
But we get to, kind of the masculine part is like,
Yeah.
are we here to fix your problems or are we here to just listen?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. And it really is just listen, right?
Yeah.
And
yeah,
it's
Yeah.
just very often it's just
And just
almost
listen doesn't mean no one has advice or
right.
words. But they're all with the intention of just settling and stewing and moving forward with your
Yeah.
piece of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
that's a big one. Like, I think I did a video on, and again, it's obviously still my opinion, on just 5 tips that I provided for people to help check in with their mates. And one thing that I learned early on in my, mental health career is that default, I guess, we want to try and fix things for people when they start reaching out. It feels like, all right, they're in need. I need to fix, fix, fix. So you try to just go in with all these solutions, but I learned very quickly that it's just provide an ear to begin with. And then your time will come when you can provide suggestion, but just listen. You don't need to fix, because a lot of the times these ideas and thoughts have been just stewing right in this person's head, ruminating for so long. They just need an outlet to get it out. So just being an ear, yeah, I'd certainly agree with you on that.
And I
Yeah.
think a flip side too is like you're not going to fix someone most likely. And so if you are so wrapped up and it changes your outlook on someone because they won't take this step or like, I think that's as toxic as it gets inside of
Yeah.
you. Like, I just showed you the way. And it's like, your way's not it,
No.
yeah,
sit in
yeah,
the back seat, right?
And
yeah,
I try and encourage guys when I sit down and I get to do this a fair bit with guys, is I like to tell them, hey, like I think of it like a backpack. Like you came into this room, it was your marriage, it was your job, it was something else. And I literally tell them, hey, this is a rock you're putting on the table. And me and you are gonna both look at the rock. It's not like you just said, right? You're not your career, you're not that thing. So we'll take it out and put it on the table. And I always tell guys, like, it's up to you to decide to put it back in your backpack or not,
mm,
or we can both just agree to leave it there. And I remind them, like, I am not sitting here and I won't put it in my backpack, just so we're clear. You know what I
mm,
mean? Like I'm not taking this from you and I'm not gonna take the weight of that. Like I've got my own rocks that I should
yeah,
be taking out anyway. And we'll take it out and either hopefully it's lighter when you put it back in if you choose to, or we just leave it here in the coffee shop and we don't take it with us and you just leave it there and
yeah,
let it be. And I think for me, it helps to remind me that I'm not taking on the weight of the conversation so that I can have that conversation and energetically leave. and still be okay. Although it does take energy.
Yeah.
But also that it establishes the relationship with the thing that, like you said, I saw somebody say that, like, you're not fat, you just have fat. You're not your problem, you
Mm.
just have a problem.
Yeah.
And the guy said, you have toes, but you're not toes. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it's that idea that, like, let's take this out. This isn't you. This is a thing that you're working through, and I'm not going to take it from you, and you should not pick it back up again if you can help it.
Mm.
And just leave it behind, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's really what we do a lot in our muster group. Is my hope and dream is that when guys come, we take our, hey, I've got this heavy thing, I'm going to put it out on the table, or maybe it's a celebration too. I mean, it's
Mm.
both, right? It's not always just bad, but we have this heavy thing. Let's put it on the table. Let's talk about it and look at it, and everybody else can, like, go, hey, look at this rock. It's just complete bullshit,
Mm.
And we can all agree, like, yeah, I don't know why you're carrying that shit around. And he goes, I don't know why I have been. And then it's just good as friends to remind guys, well, you don't have to pick that back up again either if you don't want to.
Mm.
We can just leave it right here, you know?
Yeah.
And so that's what I love
And
the most about that group is
and that's it,
having.
they've got that safe space, and that's the best thing about it. Yeah, they've got that space to be able to do that, right? They're almost,
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah. Without it, then there's nowhere to dump it or take it out, or at least even just take it out. Oh, yeah, that's right. It's this, and just look at it and acknowledge it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Acknowledge.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. And I think that thinking for me, hopefully for other guys listening, is it encourages them to know that they can have that conversation with their buddies. Because I think men, so often when we do that, they take the rock out of a buddy's backpack and they think they have to put it in their own.
Mm.
Right? And I don't think that's what we're doing. It's because we that protector, provider, masculine, I think we think of it as, okay, if he's gonna give me something for me to carry, now it's mine to carry, and it's not.
Mm.
I think it's not our job. It's that, have the cup of coffee with your buddy. You don't have to take the weight of what he's dealing with. You can just
Yeah.
have the conversation and leave it there.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what I think I've had at times through my work. People will say, like, "Oh, I don't want to be a burden, so I won't talk up." I don't want to be
Yep.
that. So, and it's
Yeah.
but you're right though, because it's sometimes we perceive that even when we're the ones struggling, that we don't want to be the burden, so we perceive that that's what people should do. So I think it's good that we talk about this, because we start to shift these, I guess, these things that we believe to be true, like that we have to take on their shit and carry that with us. No, we don't. We're just facilitating. We're allowing them to talk about that, so that, because I'm a really firm believer that everyone, we all know the answers to the struggles that we're going through. They're deep inside. Sometimes we need someone to help us find that pathway to where that is. And much like when I was struggling when I was 25, I knew that even though I was insecure, I knew that that just wasn't me. Like being controlling with my partner, I just knew that, like, that's just not true. I knew deep down that was, but I just didn't know how to stop that. So then I had to go and find those, right? And I had people help me to and go and search and find that within. And then once I found it, it's never been an issue again. So, but I think, like, yeah, I'd agree. It's not about, well, we're going to now carry your burden. It's just about supporting someone to acknowledge it and just talk about it, so that they can deal with it, and we provide someone else to help them talk about it and eventually address it and do something about it.
Yeah, because I think you're gonna find the answer, and you're gonna probably find the answer that you're gonna roll with or proceed with inside of you, no matter what.
Mm.
But to find that is hard sometimes, and especially to get out of your own self dialogue,
Mm.
because I think it's just like, just like a lie that someone says, and they lie and they lie, and then eventually it's like they graduated from that college or whatever the case is,
Right.
right? And
Mhm.
so that self dialogue, sometimes you got to get out of that to see what's behind and inside there. I
Well, and it's
think.
that that little asshole. And we talked about the asshole roommate in our heads yesterday with Coach Bob a little bit. And how do you address that guy, Troy? Because we talk a lot about that in amongst ourselves, and it's that little guy in your head that tells you can't, you're not good enough. You failed last time, you're going to fail again.
Yeah,
How do you how do you how do you address that
it's an
asshole?
interesting. It's an interesting one, because uh, I think for me, the one thing when I think about where that is most prominent for me probably comes with food. and eating. That's where I hear that voice the most. And through doing some of the work that I did when I back in 10, 11 years ago, I just had this. And again, this is just for me personally. I found I get so riled up. My thoughts would be, oh no, I've got to stop thinking this. I can't do this. I just I developed this mantra, which is just really short, and for me, everyone's wording and language is so important, but it's different. But for me, I just would say to myself, if I found myself getting a little elated, it would be, it's okay. Like I just say that to myself, and I say it all the time. It's okay, and that just helps me to become present and not get too deep in all these different funny rabbit holes of, this might happen, this or this, and blah, blah, blah. It's okay. Because I know I can come up with a good thought or a rational thought when I'm in the present moment. When I'm not, I'm thinking all types of different bullshit, and because in our minds, it's limitless, the shit that we can come up with, right? So once we bring some rationality to it and it's in the moment, especially, and that's why I think talking to people, because even just expressing and talking, you start to see sense in what it is that the shit that you're thinking, that it's not as big. So I always say, yeah, it's okay. And I know that that's not going to work for everyone, but that's something that helps me again to be present and help deal with the voice that comes out. And I will be honest in saying that I'm fortunate, as I've come to realize in life, I don't have this this inner voice that I've worked with many men that just berates them all the time. I'm very lucky I don't have that. I now see that I'm lucky in that, but also that's been built on not allowing myself to think that way either or talk to myself like that from a very young age. And this isn't something that I don't know, I've never spoken to my parents about this, but something that maybe they instilled in me, or I just learnt as I was trying to become a professional golfer and trying to think like they might or an athlete might, is that I knew if I'm just bagging myself, that's not going to help. That's not going to help my confidence. So I wouldn't, as soon as I started to think like that, it would be like, no, I'm going to stop that, And then I guess what I've now come to learn is, the fancy term is sort of like this cognitive reframing. It'd be, all right, now I'm changing. That might just be as simple as, oh man, that was a terrible shot. Why the hell did you do that? And then I'll interject that with but. It's just straight but, or however. However, I've got a good short game. I know I can get that up and down from there. Or but that was because you didn't prepare properly for that thing. So, like I just, there's a combination of that, and so that's personally again helped me to, I guess, being a contributor to why I don't have that, as I've come to learn that others have it quite, again, quite severely at times, and sometimes yeah, for just one particular thing in life that they do, like mine, like I said, it's probably around eating that it comes up a lot for me, or the most.
Yeah.
For others, it's just everything in life, and I think without getting too far into that, then we'd be doing some deep inner work about, well, where does that even stem from? Is it
Yeah.
childhood stuff? Is it your parents? Is it your parents' voice talking to you, and it's not yours? You've just developed this because it's just come from that,
Right.
Yeah.
But if you let it take over, it can be pretty debilitating. And
Yeah, for sure. That's
just some normal life, and maybe not everything too. It's just some pieces, and
Yeah, what we water grows, right? So it's looking at, like, if I'm going to allow myself to keep talking in that way, then what do I expect? It's just going to keep coming back and growing, and that's why I
100%.
said, yeah,
Yeah.
I just won't. If I catch myself doing that, then yeah, I'll be interjecting straight away.
And you made me think kind of right at the beginning. It's just like you probably have a better control over that with that love for yourself, that grace.
Yeah,
And,
yeah,
and so it
100%.
probably stems a little bit from there.
Yep, I would agree on that.
Well, this whole conversation stemmed from you fishing and talking to guys. So I always get distracted, especially with really cool dudes like you. And it's an hour 45.
Oh, really?
Can we talk about New Zealand? Yeah, exactly. Can we talk about fishing New Zealand for a second? Because it's
Yeah,
on my
yeah.
bucket list. When people say, everybody loves to say, "What's your bucket list?" For fishing if you're on a trip or if you're hunting. But New Zealand is there, and it's there. Right now we're our seasonal. Seasonally, you guys are opposite of us, right? And so the wind is blowing what looks like 400 miles
This
an hour
sounds
outside.
so.
Oh, wow.
Crazy. It's cold. Are you freezing
Yeah,
right
I'm a little
now?
cold.
It is cold in here today, and we got the heater. It's just not keeping up. It's cold in here today, and I find myself on Instagram mostly looking at people throwing dry flies and just that clear water and, just that dream right now I have. I start to go like, "Where can I go?" I'll go to the river. We have a river, like, really close, just kind of across the road over here. That's just fishing like pure shit right now. Like, it's just so cold. The fish are lethargic. It's
Yeah,
there's ice on most of it, so you're trying to find a hole you can even throw a fly into.
sure.
Um Brother, talk to me about New Zealand fly fishing. It's on my list. I mean, can I just, like, show up in New Zealand one day and just go fish a river?
So
You know,
I guess
is it all public,
I'll
private? What am I looking at?
yeah, there's a bit of both. I guess I'd preface this by saying that I started fly fishing. I haven't been. I'm coming up to almost 2 years, so I haven't been fishing for too long. But in those couple of years, I've certainly interacted, and I guess the benefit of starting a social media thing is I've interacted with a lot of different people, and I've been fortunate enough to do so, and they've informed me of different places and locations that are an absolute dream, and even I want to go and do. And I think that starts with, well, I'm very fortunate. Well, I'll start with here where I live in Topol. So we, growing up here, I never fished. I always knew that everyone would always go on about like this place is a mecca of fly fishing. But again, I never did
Gotcha.
it, so I didn't appreciate it. And then
Yep.
once I started, I've come to learn that, yeah, man, we're so lucky. So like within, from my house here, I could literally, there are one, two, three, two, three, four. There's 5 rivers that all fish.
What's your couch like? I need to know what your couch is like, I suppose, first. Is it a comfy couch to sleep on, or what's it like?
Yeah, 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 yeah. My wife, she goes through it. She's like, "Oh, I've just come used to you just not arriving when you said you would." So, uh,
Yeah, no, I'm
uh,
talking about for me to sleep on. If you got 5 rivers
oh,
close
okay. They're in the dog box all the time.
tomorrow,
Uh,
so you got
uh, yeah,
good fly
no.
fishing near the
Oh,
house,
yeah.
eh?
I definitely accommodate anyone that comes over. But yeah, we're really lucky in terms of we've got some really good rivers here, and in wintertime when it's spawning, it's like a shopping mall. Some of these rivers, it's just car parks are chocker, completely packed. Etiquette is blurry at best. It's just everyone's fishing like right next to each other, and I've come to learn that the size of the trout here, again, I just thought, these are normal. But when I
They're not
started to
normal.
learn more about, yeah, they're a lot bigger than many other places around the world.
Yes.
Um,
Eric.
like an
Yeah,
absolute,
they're next level.
pardon?
Like, it'd be
Uh,
like a dream trout for most guys in the States. Yeah, you
Yeah,
go to New Zealand and catch the biggest fish of your life.
I don't fish at all, really.
Yeah.
I've been fly fishing handful of times in my whole life. And I don't do anything. He ties everything for me, and he's like, "Move your arms this way," and I try, and
yeah,
I love it. And I love
Yeah.
floating a boat all day, but it's just not my. So to hear that, I was just surprised that, guess, for one, that you have trout, and for one, that America doesn't have the biggest trout.
I know
yeah,
we think we're the biggest and the baddest in everything,
That's just where the mind goes.
we like to think we are, but we're not.
yeah. And it's, yeah, well, I remember a mate telling me he also does social media. He was saying that he found, because he's been doing it for a while, that a lot of Americans do like his content because just purely the size of the fish. Like a lot of
Oh,
the fish
yeah.
over there, just like a fish that I consider like small, like 3 pound, 4 pound. You just throw it away, but like, damn, that's a really big fish. Like a rainbow trout.
Sure, yeah.
Like so.
And it's the thin, clear water, like, it's from a content standpoint, when guys are fishing New Zealand and you have
Oh,
this
you can see the
this
fish.
perspective of, like,
Yeah,
up on maybe a cliff or something, and somebody's throwing a fly up, and it's just you can see this fish kind of
Yeah.
tailing, and then this slow rise up to the and
Oh,
oh
So
god, I love it so much.
I've yet to really dabble in that, and so I'm looking forward to that too. And a lot of people say down south in the South Island, there's some really good fishing down there for that type of stuff. It's funny when I made some friends with people down south. They came up to the North Island and we're fishing the local rivers here, and they're like, overhead casting and stuff. I'm like, bro, you don't need to do that. You like here, and then they're like, well, down south, like you can't even get like close to a trout. So
Yes,
you're
it
doing
is
all this
that
overhead
way.
casting, yeah, and it's been interesting to learn about between the islands and different locations because again, I'm still a beginner, how you'd approach different things, and fortunately, here where I'm from, like yeah, you can get so close and you can get an overhead perspective. Like I remember walking into port, I just like what others was telling me is bro, you just charged into that pool, cast it, and you just hooked up straight away. It's like I would have had to survey that from like way back there, and there's no way I could have just charged into the pool like that. So yeah, I'm looking forward to learning more about that stuff. But we've also got the biggest lake in the southern hemisphere where I'm from, and so when all the trout finish their spawns and they go back into the lake, I mean, just fishing on the lake is lots of fun, and that's what I've been doing a lot of at the moment. Is just getting out on my kayak and just sitting and chilling in the sun and just catching some nice trouts.
Oh,
that's
that's
so fun.
that's beautiful, bud.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's where my head's at, like, on the New Zealand thing right now is just yeah, just that beautiful I mean, just the landscape and the different rivers, and it has a different look and feel than we have in the US. A lot of rivers we fish here, we live in where we're at, and a lot of the West is a high desert, right?
yeah,
I forget who was the author that called it the Seren he kinda compared it to, like, the Serengeti. It was, like,
I'm not sure.
Hemingway or somebody,
oh, okay,
and it's just really dry out here, and you look at that, and it's lush, and it's just beautiful, and those fish are so big and healthy.
yeah.
Yeah, um, man, I just wanna touch on that before we wrapped up, but Troy, thank you so much for coming on. We appreciate you a ton. Just lots of encouragement to keep creating the content that
Thank
you
you.
are. It's been a lot of fun to share, especially with men that like for me, it's so nice to have that little bit of what you create, and I'll send it off to a brother that kinda I know is having a little hard time. And you're exactly right. Like just to be able to connect and go, that feels good to hear somebody else talk about it and
Mm.
say those words out loud. And so just lots of encouragement to you to keep going, man.
Yeah,
I love it.
and I think what you on a concept and production style of it, it's so cool to see you go into what people consider their safe space or their, I only get this so much time to fish. This is my sanctuary. And you're gonna get a lot of no's and being okay with that because like this is what they're here to do.
Mm.
But then whenever you get those that agree to it and you get down, I think it's so much more because they're in that element of being vulnerable and being okay and I just we talk about it all the time. Those were the best conversations come from, and just love that so much of what you're doing and the concept of it all.
Oh, thank you. I really appreciate that. I always get taken aback by all the by when people find my content helpful, and it just I guess it again, as I've said, it's like fuel to my fire. It's something that I do, and I am so genuine about this that I do to try and help others. Just so happens that people want to follow along, and so I'm still very grateful that those that do choose to follow want to. And I know, and uh, yeah, and I'm grateful to those that do say yes. And thank you for having me on. Like I said, this is the first one. I've had people ask and offer before.
There will be a lot more.
Yeah, and I've turned them. I've said no to them, and I just didn't feel like probably I wasn't in the space to do a podcast with them. And then when you messaged, I thought about it for a while, and I don't know why. I just had like this energy about it. The message just felt right, and then I didn't even know you. I hadn't even looked into what you guys' whole podcast was about, and it just felt right. And I was like, no, this feels right, Troy. So say yes.
Sick.
So yeah, thank you
Thank you.
for having me on. Yeah, it's been awesome. I've loved it. You know, you've encouraged me to maybe say yes to others. You know, so
Do it.
but
Awesome.
again, I thank you for providing the space to just be authentic and just talk.
Yeah. Well, that's all we needed, right? Like just Tyrel. It's funny because we didn't have a lot of questions, and he's like, "What do you want to talk about?" I said, "It's going to be good. We're just going to start talking, and I think good stuff's going to come." And I knew it would. And so, just yeah, thanks for showing up like full on genuine and just being you. And to the listeners out there, hope you guys took a ton from it. Reach out to us or Troy at any time if there's anything else you guys want to talk about or you want to hear. Uh, Troy, just man, you're a blessing, and just keep being you, and we'll keep consuming, and we'll do our part to like thumbs up what we can, and yeah, man, and hopefully someday we get to do this again, and I'll probably come see you here soon,
Yeah,
and we'll
yeah,
fish
yeah,
them.
yeah. I'll get the couch ready. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
perfect. Love
yeah,
it. All right.
yeah.
Well, you be good, Troy. Thanks for your time and energy, bud.
Thank you,
Thanks,
thank
man.
you so much.
Keep crushing.
Cheers.